our founder, Jesus, gave us the brand. And the brand was to be like the most radical, loving people in the world, right? And he's like, and somewhere we lost that.
Man, you're a funny guy. You've been doing stand-up comedy how many years?
That's kind of a loaded question. So
I know, right?
I think I'm at like, if you combined all the years, it's probably like 12-ish. So I started when I was in college. So I started in 2007. But I wasn't like doing it all the time or anything like that. And then I came home, I graduated, moved back to the DFW area. And that was like January 2009. And I was hitting it pretty hard. Then around like 2013-ish, I just stopped doing it. So completely stopped. There was no I'm quitting. It was just kind of just happened. I was real busy with my career. We were about to have our first baby. I was volunteering and coaching. And it was like, something's got to kind of give. Mm-hmm. And comedy just would end up happening. And then probably 3 or 4 years later, I started doing it again. And ever since that, so we're about 8 years since that started happening again. I've been doing it nonstop.
So cool, man. You just did a special. You were talking about your special that you sent to the Booker called I Like Your Jesus.
Yes, sir.
So tell me about that, man. Where's the inspiration for the name come from?
I have a bit. I'm Middle Eastern descent, so I'm half and half. My dad's from Iran. My mom is from Louisiana. All right, so I have jokes about that. But and so I just have this kind of bit that I've been doing for years, where it's like this. I legitimately used to always get randomly searched all the time. I remember one time there was a time that I got randomly searched and I did not even have anything with me, not even a bag. It was just I was flying there and flying back. All I had was a book that I was reading. And I was like, why am I getting searched? I'm getting full on. I don't have anything. I don't even have a bag. And so I wrote this joke about how, and at the end, the tag is I like your Jesus, right? And it's about that. So
I think we pulled that. Let's watch that real quick.
And that's why I decided to start being peaceful about the whole airport security thing. And I decided I'm going to start carrying one carry-on item only. And that is a Christian Bible with an American flag Bible cover. That way I can be like, I come in peace. Thank you for converting me to your very nice religion. I like your Jesus.
That's why you named it that, because that's your A joke. That's a house laugh joke.
That joke's has gotten a lot of play over the years. And it was my merch for a while.
Did you ever feel convicted from the Lord for calling your special I Like Your Jesus, or did you get permission from him?
I don't think I really asked.
Okay, there's that.
I didn't. I don't think that I tried to market it as that.
Yeah, you didn't. It just sounds like you just took the joke, the punchline, and
took that punchline, and it was the thing to me that stood out the most from. I had no idea what I was going to call. I almost called it the vault because I was saying those jokes are going to go into the vault, and I'm never going to use it again. Yeah. But then I was like, well, that doesn't really. No one else knows what that means. What I mean? And I was like, well, there's a handful of people around this southwest region of the country that have shirts that say that on there, or koozies, or whatever. So
I think it's smart you put the most famous person in the universe in your title.
I thought it was going to help with the algorithm. It did not.
Honestly, when people search this, my podcast might pop up.
It might. There's some weird things that come up where I'm like, even like there's this one real soothing music thing that comes up.
Yeah.
I think it's the second or third thing, where it's just this picture of what Americans think that Jesus looks like, blonde-haired, light brown-haired Jesus.
Right.
And he's just standing there like this in the robe, and the music is just playing with water in the background. I was like, well, that's not my, whatever. So
I think having humor, in just your everyday life, is such a gift, and it brings people closer to you. It gives them, allows them to kind of take down their walls on things and to just enjoy your company more. And I even think it even bridges the gap for you to be able to present the gospel to them in a way that's not as much so religious or legalist, but in a way that's very relational,
Yeah.
And I've just experienced that in my own life, to where it feels like even when I stopped doing comedy, I was like, I'm still funny. I can still make people laugh at any point of the day. And that's a good place to be in. With comedy though, I've noticed one thing since removing myself in 2020 and then kind of inserting myself back in over the last couple of years, I've noticed that a lot of comedians struggle to have faith in God, and they don't really have a relationship with him, and they seem more cynical about faith than almost any other like realm of people I've ever encountered. Why do you think that is?
I think that, I wonder if it's where we are in, like, where we do comedy at. So comedians usually try to be like the rebel, like the outsider, I do it all. In DFW, if you are a Christian, you are not the outsider. You are the overwhelming majority of the people that you encounter. I mean, this is the buckle of the Bible Belt. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the center of it. And I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe you also have to remember a lot of comedians are degenerates. I don't know where I stand with, I know where I stand with my faith. I don't know where I stand with me in church per se. I still believe that Jesus is the Son of God. I still believe that Jesus is the Savior. I still believe that he died for our sins. I still believe in God. I still believe in that. I still pray. I still listen to worship music and get emotional sometimes. Sometimes it's nice to cry. I still pray with my kids when they have big things. I still teach them. I still talk to them about Jesus. I still do that. But I'm not a very big fan right now of the church per se, and the direction that it has gone over the last, I don't know, maybe decade. For me personally, with my faith, where my faith hasn't changed, I still believe in Jesus. I just don't really believe in the current day church, if that makes sense.
Also, I got to challenge you. Have you tried many churches, or have you tried a few churches?
We've tried a handful. I was listening to this podcast about 3 months ago. Are you familiar with Bent Tree Bible Church?
No.
Okay. Do you know who Pete Briscoe is?
I don't.
So he was the pastor at Bent Tree Bible Church. They're a Bible church in like the North Dallas, Carrollton, Plano area. And he was there for many years and he left. And everyone was like, well, Pete Briscoe just leave this church. And there was never really any, I don't know if there's
public explanation.
I don't know if there is somewhere. I've never heard it. And he has this podcast now. And he had an episode with Jeff Jones, who's a pastor out in Plano. And I've listened to this episode like 5 times because it just like resonates with me. And I told him, I was like, dude, I just like wept listening to that episode because it was exactly they articulated exactly how I feel. And it was talking about, Jeff wrote a book called Rebranding. I don't know the exact title, but essentially it was like rebranding the Christianity brand. And he's like, talks about it, how that we were given, he's like, we don't have to come up with the brand as Christians. He's like, our founder, Jesus, gave us the brand. And the brand was to be like the most radical, loving people in the world. Right? And he's like, and somewhere we lost that. And he's like, in the perception of the outside looks at us as the opposite. And he tells this whole story of how he was speaking at this pastor's conference, and he was talking about like bringing the church back to that. He's like, why does the outside world look at us as not loving? Like, he's like, Jesus said that we should be looking at it as the most loving, the most caring, the most forgiving, the most giving, all these things, right? If the world looks at us as the opposite of what we are supposed to be doing, what are we doing wrong? And I was like, that's kind of what I've been thinking. So the podcast host, Pete Briscoe, he's like, so what are you doing about it? Yeah. And he was like, because to me, he goes, the biggest thing is we want to give power to the powerless at our church. He's like, we're in an area that is, on one side of the train tracks is extremely affluent. The other, not really. He's like, so we started spending a ton of time, instead of it being all about us and about our church and, oh, this is a great thing and that and everything like that. He's like, we've set up classes to give people the opportunity to learn English. We've helped people. We're doing classes for immigrant people so that they can get their citizenship. We're doing classes. We're teaching people how to feed themselves correctly. We're teaching people how to get better jobs and stuff like that. And I want to be part of that. You know what I mean? Like that's something I just feel like that in the last 10 years, I'm not going to put an exact date on it, but it just has turned into this like fight with the out, like, oh my God, we're being persecuted. Cool. No, we're not. Like, just because someone disagrees, you're not being persecuted. Just love. Just show your love. Just show your love to people. And I bet you win them over.
Well, I think also with what you're saying about like the church needs to be love, and love well, and not, treat outcasts. Like obviously like that's real, and that's truth. But also I feel like there's so many churches that are doing the right thing. I would say, like, I don't know the number. I'm not going to put a number on it, but I think you have to find the right church for you that lines up with your theology, that lines up with the way your heart posture is. For instance, I was going to a church in the summer or last year that I really liked. It was a plant church, and my heart started shifting to being more like outreach focused and very much so like mission focused. And I switched churches to go over to where I'm at now because of that heart posture change of like what was important to me in my faith, And I think the Lord will like reveal things to you as like what is important to you. So it sounds like for you, what's important to you is you want the church to represent a lot of what Jesus is teaching to the community.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to see that on like a grand scale because you only see them on like Sundays and Wednesdays, maybe.
For sure.
So, but I think there's so many more churches and Christians. Like, I think Christians are the best people on the planet. To be honest, I have seen like halty Christianity, where it's like, we're better than people. I've seen that, but I've also just seen like, people giving meals when somebody has a baby. I've seen people show up in prayer at hospitals when somebody's sick. Like, I've seen the best of like the body of Christ, so it's hard for me to just like, pigeonhole like a certain group of people that go to a church that don't live out the gospel. And I think that's everywhere. I think that's the difference between religion and relationship, because religion will have you kind of in this box and putting God in a box of how you can love people and how you should treat people, while a relationship with Jesus will have you like acting like him, leaning in like he does, and doing all these things. And that's where I think the whole like we need to shift up what Christianity looks like, and it doesn't need to be described as a religion. It needs to be described as a faith.
When there is a shift change in your heart, you will see changes like way more than just like, oh, because I go to church on Sunday. The closest times that I've ever felt in my relationship with Jesus is when I was out there doing things for other people, not going, some of these churches do like, well, you got lasers for Jesus. We don't need all that. Like, just let's go feed somebody. Let's go just love on people. You know what I mean? Like the closest I ever felt to with my faith was I used to coach basketball out in South Dallas for like 3 or 4 years. My buddy was the head of this ministry, the youth department at this ministry called His Bridge Builders. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or not. Mm-hmm. And they do most of their work in South Dallas, and it's about like just like revitalizing South Dallas, and like helping these people out because the zip code that the neighborhood that they were in was like, I think like the 9th most impoverished zip code in the country. Doing things with those kids, man, and like seeing how much they needed people pouring into their day every single day, right? You know what I mean? It wasn't about basketball. I mean, dude, I wanted to win. Like, we won some games. We're pretty good. We were a pretty good squad. But that's not what it was about. It was about teaching these kids to be men and showing them, I remember I always wanted my wife around. Like, I wanted my wife was going to come to stuff no matter what, because she loved on those kids so much, right? She did so much. She put in more effort almost than I felt like that I was putting in, right? Like just coming up with things. But I wanted them to see a man that loved his wife and what that looks like and different things. And I don't know, those moments with those kids were like, to me, that was like such a Christ-like moment.